What's up, everybody? It's day 50 of the 60-day Astroneer challenge, and today's challenge we are tasked with making some Astroneer artwork outside of the game. So my username double zero effects uh, is my sort of artist entity that under which I make movie props and costumes and video game items and all sorts of stuff. I'm a prop builder, and it's been my intention for a long time now to make uh, an Astroneer costume or some props or something from the game. And this is a perfect opportunity for me to sort of flex those skills uh, for one, for myself as an artist, but also for the challenge. So I have been racking my brain over what I want to do. I would I would really like to make pajamas as a full costume, but I'm not quite ready to uh, to spend that kind of energy. I There's some preliminary work that I have to do. I want to scale. Uh, First off, I need to take like reference material and scale it to my body. Pajamas here has some very cartoonish uh, proportions, and if I were to make him life size, this helmet, for example, and the backpack, for example, would be gigantic. So I think I need to push and pull some proportions around just to make them a little bit more realistic. But I'm not quite ready to spend that kind of energy. So um, this storm might interrupt us here, but so I was thinking about if there's any items, for example, that I could make um, that I could use toward the costume. Because what I want to do for the full costume is I want to make this backpack work. I want the items. I want you to be able to take an item off the backpack and put it on, and I want it to be all magnetic. But if I were to do that, that would require that I do all that upfront scaling work, and I just want to make something. So I'm less concerned at the moment about making anything toward the costume. I just want to make something. So I was thinking, what kind of items and stuff could I make? And so that's one of the reasons why I've been holding on to these two research samples, because they're just, they're pretty unique among the items in the game. You can only find them, at least right now, you can only find them on the backpacks of fallen Astroneers. Um, but I don't know. It's not like identifiably Astroneer enough for me to spend that energy on up front. If it's going to be a single item, I kind of want it to be like an iconic Astroneer item. And so I was thinking, well, what if I did uh, like some resin or something, and or maybe one of the augments. But uh, I also thought of a small solar with this base and everything. But I don't know. I kind of want to keep it really simple. And so I was thinking, well, what if I did like a little model kit kind of thing, and either make I for whatever reason I really like the design of the seat, but I don't know if I were to design that as a model kit. That's still a ton of work to part all of this out and figure out how all the parts get molded and all that kind of stuff. So that's still a little too complex for me. But then I was thinking, well, what about the drop ship? The drop ship is just a basic cone shape. It has some surface details on it. That would be very nice. I think it would be very easy to model. It would be very easy to mold, that kind of thing. So I printed one, and I forgot that they came packed. And so it occurred to me I could make an unpacked item. And what I like about this is that the unpacked item is modular graphics wise. It's the same piece, it's the same model for anything that comes packed in it, except the graphic changes item to item. And I don't know, something about that really spoke to me. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to model up an unpacked small item and go from there. I think what I could do, I don't know if this is going to end up happening or not. It's my intention for the purposes of this challenge to produce the 3D model for it. But where I could go with that from there would be later on, if I make the costume, I could scale the 3D model to fit on the backpack, because these items do fit on the backpack. Alternatively, it could just be like a standalone, like a desk toy kind of thing, just a little standalone model, and I could make it make the little side lights turn on. And my thinking there would be, and I was looking at the bottom side of this. I have to sort of like get it to sort of fall just right. Okay, so I was looking at the bottom because I wanted to see how this hard point looks, and I noticed that how the yellow straps form on it. And so I was thinking, what if I scaled it like the desk toy version? What if I scaled it so that the width of the yellow strap was 2 inches wide, which is a standard nylon webbing strap width. And that would allow me to actually use real nylon webbing straps for it, just to add a little bit of realism to it. And once I thought of that, I really latched onto the idea of making this. So I think what I'm going to do is my artwork will be to reproduce this 3D model and possibly in the future actually produce this as a real world item. So now I'm doing a lot in game here. We're supposed to do this out of the game, but the first thing that I need to do is I need to collect references. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Adobe Photoshop to collect my references, and then I'm going to produce a set of fairly rudimentary vector line drawings of this, and I'm going to use those line drawings to produce my 3D model. Now, some people, when they produce replicas of items in video games, some people are able to actually go into the game's source code somehow and pull out the actual 3D models into some kind of model viewer. I don't know what's happening there. I've never done it that way, and so the way I always do it is I'll just line things up the best I can, straight views, and take screenshots. I'll take angle views Like if I'm taking a screenshot, I might get a screenshot here. I might get a screenshot here. I might even do one on the corner like that. I'll get really close on an item. You know, I'll get views like this, where I can see how these angles relate to one another in the fine details and stuff. So that's how I collect my references, and so let's go ahead and get started. Alrighty, so there is my orthographic view, uh, or multiple orthographic views of the unpacked container. Now, you may have noticed that I was playing kind of fast and loose with some of uh, the orthographic screenshots that I was taking, where I drew a square and then I kind of took these views here and kind of pushed and pulled and stretched them to fit that square, kind of loosely. Generally speaking, when I make props, uh, I try to go for I try to go as accurate as I can, given the reference material available to me. Um, and uh, Secondary to that, I feel like uh, the sort of character of the item is more critical, uh, from a time management perspective. You know, if what I'm able to reproduce has the general feel of the item, hits all the high points, uh, I'm not going to worry about whether this little corner here is, you know, a millimeter too far to the left or whatever. So, so long as, you know, like I said, so long as I hit all the high points, and it's as accurate as I can make it given the references that I am able to acquire, I'm reasonably pleased. So, and like I said earlier, I'm not one of these builders who's able to, you know, go into the game files and actually extract 3D models and stuff. I like to have my hand in the process the entire time, instead of just printing off you know, a 3D print of the exact game model. You know, sometimes it takes a little bit more of a hand finished kind of process to it. Like, you know, for example, this hard point on the bottom, you'll notice that it's faceted. Well, it's evident to me that the game designers intend for this to just be a smooth cone. So obviously, if I'm gonna be reproducing this, I'm gonna be thinking critically about this and say, okay, this needs to be a cone, not a faceted, whatever shape that's gonna end up being. And then there's gonna be some artistic liberties that I'm taking with it, because I want to make this band an actual nylon uh, nylon webbing strap here. So that's not going to get modeled in. Um, and then there may end up being some things that I scratch build, for example, or laser cut. Like these plates here uh, might benefit more from being laser cut and glued on later than being modeled in. Now, I'll probably model them in for the sake of having a complete 3D model, uh, but yeah, that might be a separate piece that I laser cut. These corner things, I don't know if these are supposed to be lights or what, but these things, uh, this will end up being a separate piece that, uh, provided I actually manufacture this thing, these things will be separate components that get glued on. Um, and I might actually do that with these things too. So instead of making it like on the actual 3D model, you'll see that it actually comes into this inner bevel here. Well, if this is some kind of like seatbelt type of mechanism, and this whole silver plate here falls off or is otherwise retracted, then it makes more sense to me that this edge actually just stays straight like that instead of actually coming in. So this may end up being a separate piece that gets glued on, just for the sake of a little bit of added realism. But we'll see what happens. But that ends up concluding the 2D aspect of this. So on to 3D modeling. Alrighty, here it is. Here's the finished 3D model with both an assembled view and an exploded view showing the parts breakdown. So the idea here is if I were to make this a real object, all of these parts would be molded separately so that I could cast them in color. And I think the only bit of paintwork would be for this piece and this piece, where this piece is two-toned, so maybe cold cast it with some aluminum powder in there, and then paint this part this dark gray, and then the bottom hard point obviously has the red ring around it and the black center. So I think those parts would be the only ones that really need to be painted. The rest can be cast in color, and the decals would provide the blue color on the sides there. An additional idea would be to make it so that the green part does actually light up. And so what would be involved there is prior to final assembly, this piece here, this inner facing here would be drilled out and dremeled to be an open space, and then this piece would be glued on to perhaps there's a little lip left on there, but if the cube itself is cast hollow, you could put like an LED inside, and the light would shine through and illuminate these things. Alternatively, I have the ability to cast these pieces in a glow-in-the-dark material. It would be just a clear resin with a glow-in-the-dark additive to it, basically. So you could charge it under a UV light and then turn the lights off, and then these panels glow. That would probably be the simpler approach, but I am trying to work more LEDs into my projects lately. I recently completed 2 helmets, 3 technically, but 2 helmets where it involved some really intense LED work, and I really liked working with them, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, the idea here is these parts would probably just be 3D printed, and for the sake of a 3D print, I might take the cube base and split it along this trench line here so that I can print the top and the bottom separately, so that I get cleaner prints for these recessed areas, top and bottom, and then just glue the 3D prints together, clean them up, and then mold it as one big cube. And again, as far as molding, I only need to make one mold, so or one mold for each part. So I only need to print one of these, one of these, one of these, one of these, and one of these, because then I can cast multiples of each one to facilitate a quicker build. But yeah, so there's the small container, I guess. The small, what are we calling this? Unpacked container. Yeah, so this is the small unpacked container. And oh, one more thing. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, I don't have a 3D model for the strap because the strap is going to be a 2-inch polyester webbing strap that I've already sourced a seller for on the internet. So, but yeah, it would just be scaled. The model would be scaled so that this strap would be 2 inches wide. I don't know what that would put the scale of the overall model at. Officially, I'd say it's probably a non-scale kind of thing, where it's not necessarily like half scale or quarter scale or anything like that. It's just a unscaled version of it, just a little desk toy kind of thing. But so that's why the strap is not included in the 3D model. Um, but yeah, so there it is. There's my art, quote unquote, made outside of the game, and this is actually my first real prop video for the channel. So maybe we'll get more videos uh, of this build later on. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed, and I'll see y'all later.